Science Unscripted.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Science Unscripted. It's Connor here.
And Gabe.
And for all of you out there, there was a study that, I don't know, you may have seen already, or you've seen the headline. It went around the world this week, and it felt really important. And the more I looked at it, I wasn't even sure I understood it. It was a study that seemed to say that there's no difference between men and women with regard to how they express their emotions outwardly. That's how the headlines kind of read. Gabe, you saw, I think, one of the headlines. That was it. You know nothing about the study?
I have not even seen the headline. But I already have... Please fill me in. But I already have questions and things to say about that idea.
Yeah, so I can't...
That men and women, there's no difference between them when it comes to their emotions.
Let me put it this way. It seemed, based on all of the thousands of comments and that I saw across the web and the way that this was being shared on social media platforms, tweeted, retweeted, posted on Facebook, that people seemed to understand from it that men and women, in terms of, how expressive they are, how emotional they are, full stop, that they're nearly equal or way more equal than I thought. And then I started looking at this study, and I don't think that's exactly what it says, to be honest. In fact, it says a lot more than that. It gets into menstrual cycles as being a factor, and it got more complex than I expected, to be honest. And that's when I thought, let's go to the source. Let's go to Adrienne Beltz. She's one of the three authors involved in this study on how men and women emote.
Science Unscripted.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Beltz. I'm an assistant professor of psychology at the University of Michigan, and I was a senior author on some recent research on gender and emotion fluctuations, or how emotions change from day to day.
And Adrienne, what was the primary conclusion from your research? What did you find out?
Yeah, the primary conclusion from our work was that emotions don't change from day to day to different extents in men and women, that those hormone variations didn't seem to drive variations in emotion to a large extent.
Okay, so I've heard variation and fluctuation. Let's take it down to some really understandable language. Men and women, there's no difference between them when it comes to emotions and how much of them that they have?
Yeah, so that's a key distinction in our study, that we didn't look at emotions in terms of how positive or how negative the emotions are, but how much they change from day to day across 75 days. So kind of the ups and downs, or that variability, that fluctuation in emotions. We don't see men going like this and women going even higher. Like, the size of that variability is what was stable. If you think of it as the roller coaster of emotions, or the highs and lows. And in fact, in a lot of scientific research for many, many decades, women were excluded from research for those reasons. That if we're trying to study something like attention, or we're trying to study something like problem solving, that this emotional liability of women will get in the way. It's going to confound our ability to study this. And our research shows that that's very misguided, because women aren't more liable than our men.
I just want to make that clear. Women have been excluded from scientific research, lots of it sounds like, because the assumption was they're going to have their period at some point, and that's going to...
Yeah, so I think the notion was that, yes, like menstrual hormones, because they were varying, and anything that those hormones might influence, like emotion, was also varying. So in fact, if you didn't want to study emotion, if you wanted to study some aspect, like I said, of cognition, or some aspect of personality, you best not include women, because these variable emotions could get in the way. It could prevent you from seeing the truth of personality or of cognition. And so most research for decades was done only on men. Now, at least in the United States, some recent funders, like the National Institutes of Health, have said, hey, that's wrong. And there have been attempts to overturn that since like the 1990s in different forms. But this is among the first studies to show that it's not just ethically wrong, it was scientifically inaccurate.
I'm not sure that I could pinpoint the exact moment or remember a specific instance where I heard this stereotype, but I'm sure that when I was young, I can remember people saying that women get more moody. Your research says that is not true, that if you compare men and women over a span of 75 days, women's mood swings aren't worse than men's. Is that what your research says? Black and white.
Yep, you've got it. That if you look at moodiness across 75 days, highs and lows for men and women seem to be the same. We're not seeing meaningful distinctions for either positive or negative emotions.
Why does society believe that, or the society in which I grew up? Why is that stereotype there? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a great question that goes a bit beyond the data, but one of the other data would suggest that it has something to do with bias in our perceptions of emotions. When we see, maybe somewhat of a lame example is, when you see a man getting angry at work or worked up at a call during a sporting match, it's passion. It's passionate. He cares. He's showing us he cares. Isn't that a good thing? And when women do something similar, sitting around a boardroom table, it's like, whoa, she's got to get it together, And those types of attributions and the biases in both those interpretations, and then whether we think they're positive or negative and how they stick with us, could be one of these underlying notions. There's other work to suggest that might be the case. That's not what our work was about, but I'm realizing now as we talk about it more, that's how it's resonating with people in demonstrating the bias in our interpretation of emotions.
Some of my friends here in Germany, women, the colleagues, actually, I'll go ahead and say that, have said on a couple occasions, hey, stay away from him, he's menstruating, which I was impressed with their English. Is it? But this means there's some truth to that. That if you're gonna, I don't know, use that word negatively against women, watch out, she's menstruating, then it's equally as fair to say, watch out, he's menstruating. He's going, I don't know, through an emotional dip or something.
Yeah. That's somewhat of a funny way to say it, but I guess maybe what my takeaway would be is that we're all human. And for a variety of reasons, we all experience a range of emotions across days, and that's fine. That's normal. Let's stop attributing it to gender, and let's just appreciate that we all have some similar emotional experiences, and we need to figure that out for individuals, why you have these kinds of rises and falls, so that we can make sure they're productive for you, for the people you're in relationships with.
Science Unscripted.
That was Adrienne Beltz speaking to us from Ann Arbor, Michigan, and she stressed that we also name her colleagues, or the people that worked with her on this study, Alexander Weigard and Amy M. Loviska.
Yeah, you need a couple of people to help you out, when you've got, 140 people that you're tracking for 75 days?
75 days.
That was convincing in terms of how much data they actually got as a result of that.
How many journal entries they had to sift through, and then, or surveys, essentially, people talking about their emotions, and then to be able to conclude that there is no difference between men and women, that's a feat.
Yeah, and again, just to be clear, that was my confusion from the very beginning. What are we actually talking about here? Are we saying that men and women are equally emotional, or in terms of the way that they express those?
That's such an absurd claim to make. That is so vague.
It is, but I
cannot make that claim.
But the thing is, I really think this is a case of a study whose headline when it was kind of, repackaged by the media and put out in the world, the actual information kind of got missed or people accidentally got misled. I think a lot of people who saw this or who came across it think that what it says is that we emote at the same levels, and that's not true.
Let's summarize exactly what the study concluded then. Can you do that?
Go for it.
That over a 75-day period, you follow men and women, there will be no difference between them based on their gender, on how much their moods change on a day-to-day basis.
Yes.
Did I get it?
Yes. But that is not the same.
That's not saying that men and women, there's no difference between them with regard to the way they express their emotions what emotions they feel.
You and I grew up at a time and in a place, in a culture where it was, you and I heard this before. Men don't cry. Come on, be a man. Don't cry. Right?
I heard that through my entire youth. Yeah.
We have been drilled with the idea that expressing emotions is a sign of weakness, and you're I don't know. It grosses me out, man. Stop crying.
Just don't do it.
Yeah. And so I think, that's a different area of research, but also really interesting. So we've had all of these cultural things layered on top of us, which has changed the way we express emotions. I think that's true for cultures everywhere in the world. And if you could remove that and put us, I don't know, on an island where there was no culture, maybe it is possible that we would all emote in exactly the same ways and at you know what I mean? But that's not, that's not proven.
If that is the case, then that will be proven at a later date. At this point, we're sticking to the fluctuation or variation of emotions.
Yeah.
And this study says that there really is no difference between men and women with regard to that.
Yeah.
So there's your takeaway.
There's your takeaway.
What do you have to say about it?
If you have anything, whether anecdotal or we always love when people point us in the direction of other research that's similar or on the same topic, you can post it in the comments, can or email us.
Or what you feel about the conclusions. I think that's just as important.
Yeah, please.
What this makes you think or how do you react to it? We'd love to hear it.
With anger. With emotions.
With some kind of emotion.
Exactly.
I don't know what.
Another way to get in touch, we're su@dw.com. We read every single email. We would love to hear from you.
Science Unscripted.